Village of Crestwood was tucked away in a forgotten corner of the world, where time seemed to stand still. It was the sort of place where generations of families never strayed far from the rolling hills and the aging church that anchored the community. My arrival in Crestwood was a quiet affair, marked by the soft murmurs of the villagers as they welcomed their new priest. As I stood before the centuries-old church, a chill ran down my spine. It wasn't just the biting wind that swept through the ancient oaks, but an unmistakable feeling that something was amiss. The church itself was a relic of the past, its time-worn stones echoing with the whispered prayers of countless souls. In the weeks that followed, I couldn't escape the sense of unease that had settled over Crestwood like an oppressive fog. At first, the strange occurrences were subtle: a flickering candle, an odd shadow in the pews, a sense of being watched during evening vespers. But as the days turned to weeks, the whispers of fear grew louder. It was during a midday mass that I witnessed the first unmistakable sign of the curse. As the congregation knelt in prayer before the altar, a parishioner reached out to touch the ancient stone. A gasp of horror escaped her lips as her face contorted with terror. Her cries filled the sacred space as she spoke of visions too ghastly to comprehend. The once devout woman was forever changed, her mind haunted by horrors unknown. Word spread quickly, and soon, more villagers began to avoid the church altogether, their faith shaken to the core. The pews that were once filled with hopeful souls grew emptier with each passing Sunday. Crestwood was a community torn asunder by an unseen force, and I, its new shepherd, felt powerless to stop it. In the dim candlelight of my humble study, I delved into the annals of the church's history, seeking any clues to the curse that had befallen us. My fingers brushed against the weathered pages of ancient records, revealing tales of long-departed priests and the faithful who once filled these hallowed halls. One evening, buried deep within the fragile pages of a dusty tome, I stumbled upon the diary of a former priest, Father Benedict. His words spoke of despair, of a struggle against an insidious force that had plagued the church for generations. It told of his valiant but fruitless efforts to remove the curse and of his eventual disappearance, leaving behind nothing but cryptic entries. My heart raced as I read his final words. The answer lies in the village's oldest legend, the tale of the vengeful spirit wronged by our forebears. I sought out an elderly villager, Elias, known for his knowledge of Crestwood's history. Elias, with his gnarled hands and keen intellect, confirmed Father Benedict's words. He revealed the legend of a vengeful spirit, a woman named Alara, who had been wronged by the church's founders centuries ago. In her dying breath, she cursed the church, vowing that her spirit would never rest until justice was served. After hearing that, Elias and I devised a plan to appease the vengeful spirit of Alara. We gathered the remaining parishioners, those whose faith had not wavered entirely, and explained our desperate plan. Fearful eyes stared back at us, but they knew as well as I did that we had to confront the malevolent force that had taken root in our church. As the night of the ritual approached, tension hung in the air like a storm cloud. The church, usually a place of solace, now felt like a battlefield. We could hear faint whispers and mournful sighs in the shadows as if Alara's spirit was testing our resolve. The night arrived, and with it came an atmosphere of palpable dread. Our makeshift altar was set before the cursed stone, and the congregation held tightly to their faith as Elias and I began the ritual. Incense filled the air, its fragrant smoke curling around us, and candles flickered as we chanted ancient words passed down through generations. The moment of truth came when the cursed altar trembled, emitting an otherworldly, mournful wail. Shadows danced in the corners of the church, and a chilling wind swept through the ancient rafters. It was as if the very foundations of our faith were being tested. As the ritual reached its climax, Alara appeared before us. Elias and I pleaded for forgiveness on behalf of the church's founders and offered a heartfelt apology for the injustice done to Alara. With a final, haunting sigh, she seemed to dissipate, leaving behind an eerie calm, and ever since the curse was broken. I got a job as a priest in a small, pretty town called Willowbrook. The town had an old church that meant a lot to the people who lived there. I felt really proud to be the priest there, but I also had a strange feeling that something bad might happen. The church was beautiful, with tall towers and an old wooden confessional booth, but something weird started happening in that booth. People who confessed their sins there started feeling really scared and had bad dreams. People in the town talked about it secretly. They said that confessions in the booth felt scary, like there was something evil there. One day, a scared young woman came out of the booth, looking really pale and frightened. She said she had confessed something, and something dark and scary was with her during it. More and more people had creepy stories about the confessional. Some said they heard whispers in there, and others felt like a cold, bony hand touched them while they were confessing. I tried to tell myself it was just their imaginations or superstitions, but as time passed, I couldn't ignore it anymore. One night, after everyone had left, I went into the confessional booth nervously. I touched the old wood and wondered about the secrets it held. To my surprise, I found hidden writings inside the booth's walls. They were written by people long gone, and they talked about something really scary. It seemed like a priest named Father Lucius had done forbidden things in the church and made a pact with a very bad force. As I read more, it became clear that Father Lucius was a charismatic leader who had used his power to control people. He did weird rituals, and strange things happened in the church while he was in charge. Many believed he made a deal with a dark force, trading the souls of his followers for unholy power. As I delved deeper into the mystery, I began to experience unsettling visions during my own confessions, faces contorted with terror, eyes filled with dread. These were the signs that something malevolent lurked within the confessional, something that fed on the sins confessed. During one particularly harrowing confession, I heard a whisper that seemed to originate from the very wood of the confessional. "You cannot stop what's coming," it hissed, chilling my bones. The nightmares that haunted my nights grew more vivid, the shadows darker, and my own soul felt as if it were being slowly devoured. I realized that to save myself and my congregation, I had no choice but to confront the ghost that dwelled within the confessional. With a heart heavy with dread and determination, I decided to perform a daring ritual, one I had discovered in Father Lucius's hidden writings. I knew the risks were immense, but the fate of Willowbrook hung in the balance. The night of the ritual arrived, shrouded in an eerie silence. As I stood before the confessional, ancient words of banishment fell from my lips, incense filling the air as I chanted. Candles flickered, their flames dancing wildly as if in defiance. Then it happened. The confessional trembled, its wood groaning as if in agony. The very church itself seemed to quiver in response. Shadows deepened, swirling into a menacing form that loomed before me. In that heart-pounding moment, as the ghost coalesced into a nightmarish entity, I fought with all my might to maintain my composure. But the battle was far from over. The confessional, its ancient wood splintering, seemed to crack under the strain of the ritual. And then, just as it appeared that I might succeed in banishing the malevolent entity, the confessional ruptured, its fragments flying through the air like shards of darkness. The entity let out a blood-curdling scream, its form contorting and writhing in agony. As I braced for victory, the entity's anger turned toward me, draining my life force and enveloping me in darkness. It was stronger than any spirit I'd faced. The night was a symphony of torment, orchestrated by relentless rain and thunder's unholy percussion. My friends and I had driven for hours, our car a tiny vessel battling the furious tempest. The windshield wipers struggled to keep up, and the world outside was a blurry, ominous landscape. Desperation gripped us as the rain hammered relentlessly. Amidst this torrential chaos, a nearly invisible sign emerged, its rusted frame barely standing against the onslaught. It pointed toward an ominous destination, St. Jude's abandoned church. With no other refuge in sight, we followed its cryptic arrow, a beacon of hope in the obsidian night. As we pulled up to the church, our headlights cast a feeble glow on its ancient facade. The stones, weathered by centuries of torment, bore the scars of forgotten horrors. The very air clung to us with the weight of old sins. An uneasy hush settled among us, but the promise of shelter beckoned us into the abyss. Inside, the church was a haunting tapestry of decay. Rows of pews lay twisted and shattered like the remnants of some forgotten nightmare. Cobwebs draped every corner like spectral tapestries. and the air was thick with the acrid scent of decay. We ventured forth, flashlights carving through the oppressive darkness. Deeper within the forsaken sanctuary, we stumbled upon a hidden door, its wood and iron warped by time. Beyond it, a spiral staircase descended into the church's subterranean heart. We descended cautiously, our footsteps echoing ominously. Our flashlights pierced the dark, revealing an underground chamber, a shrine untouched by the ravages of time. At its center lay a chest, its ornate carvings whispering enigmatic secrets. The chest exuded an unsettling aura, and a sense of impending doom washed over us. Fueled by reckless curiosity, we pried it open, unveiling an artifact of grotesque beauty. A figurine hewn from a stone as dark as midnight, its features twisted in eternal torment. As we gazed upon the cursed idol, it stirred to life. Its eyes ignited with malevolence, and an eldritch whisper filled the chamber, a haunting incantation that clawed at our very souls. Our hearts quickened, and a nameless dread descended like a shroud. We soon realized our grievous error. The artifact was not meant to be disturbed, and we had unwittingly awoken a vengeful spirit bound to it for eons. The chamber seemed to constrict around us, and an unnatural cold seeped into our very bones. One by one, my friends vanished into the inky void, consumed by the encroaching darkness as the vengeful spirit exacted its terrible revenge. I was left alone, haunted by the anguished whispers of my friends, their faces forever etched in terror. With trembling hands, I returned the accursed artifact to its chest, desperate to quell the malevolent spirit's fury. But it was too late. The soul hungered for retribution. It called my name, and I knew I was its final prey. As the storm outside raged on, I could feel the vengeful spirit's icy grip tighten around me. An implacable force from the depths of the abyss. The chamber's very stones seemed to pulse with malevolence, and I was swallowed by a darkness that defied comprehension. The walls whispered of forgotten secrets, and the echoes of my friends' agonized screams filled the air. Their spectral forms materialized in the shadows, their accusing eyes burning with an unquenchable malevolence. And so, on that fateful night, a group of friends seeking shelter from the storm found themselves ensnared in a nightmarish labyrinth of horror and retribution. The rain outside continued to weep, as if mourning the souls lost to the malevolence that dwelled within the whispering walls of St. Jude's abandoned church. In the heart of a quaint and peaceful town, I, Pastor Daniel, embarked on my journey to lead St. Mark's Church. On the surface, it was an unassuming house of worship, adorned with pristine white walls and elegant stained glass windows that bathed the interior in a kaleidoscope of colors during the sun's embrace. But beneath this facade of piety, a sinister secret lay dormant, waiting for its revelation. In the early days of my pastoral duties, the sermons flowed from my lips like a soothing river of grace, filling the congregation's hearts with warmth and hope. The pews were graced by devoted parishioners, their faces illuminated by faith. However, as the weeks slowly transformed into months, I couldn't help but sense an undercurrent of unease that clawed at my conscience. Strange occurrences began to weave a web of dread around St. Mark's. In the stillness of night, I'd hear distant, ominous whispers echoing through the empty corridors of the church. Dark, hooded figures would come and go like phantoms, their footsteps eerily silent against the cold stone floors. And then there were the cryptic messages, inexplicable symbols etched onto the church's walls as if invisible hands had inscribed them. The turning point arrived on a stormy night when I decided to follow a flickering candlelight trail leading me to the church's basement, a place shrouded in perpetual darkness and rarely ventured by anyone, even the custodian. The atmosphere was oppressive, the air thick with incense and decay. A nauseating dread overcame me as I pushed open the ancient heavy door that guarded the basement's secrets. The room within revealed a nightmare beyond any fevered dream. Its walls were adorned with grotesque symbols that seemed to pulse with an unholy life of their own. In the room's center, a congregation of hooded figures knelt before an altar, stained crimson with blood. Their chant was a cacophony of voices that sent icy tendrils down my spine. Atop the blood-streaked altar lay a young woman, her eyes wide with terror, her mouth silenced by a hand that belonged to one of the hooded figures. I watched in horrified fascination as the cultists circled her, their chanting growing louder and more frenetic. Evidently, they were enacting some vile ritual, a perversion of faith that defied all reason. The young woman's screams reverberated through the chamber, but the cultists remained steadfast in their devotion to their sinister cause. Summoning every ounce of courage and invoking the divine power I had always believed in, I stepped forward, trembling but determined, and cried out, "In the name of all that is holy, I command you to cease." The cultists turned to me, their hooded faces concealed in shadows, but their malevolent intent unmistakable. For a heart-stopping moment, the chamber hung in eerie stillness, as if the air held its breath in anticipation. Then, as if an invisible force finally relented, the cultists began to waver. Doubt crept into their eyes, and the oppressive darkness that had gripped the room began to recede like a retreating tide. I continued to invoke the power of goodness and light, urging them to abandon their wicked path and to let the young woman go. Slowly, the cultists dispersed, their ritual shattered, and the young woman was freed from their clutches, her trembling form guided by a helping hand toward the safety of the church above. However, the horrors were far from over. In the following days, I delved deeper into the cult's sinister web, uncovering a history drenched in blood and deception. Their practices were even more horrifying than I had imagined, their motivations darker than the bottomless abyss. As I struggled to unravel the cult's secrets, I confronted not just a hidden cabal within the church, but a malevolent force that seemed to defy the laws of nature itself. A passion that hungered for something far more sinister than mere power or devotion. The battle against this enigmatic entity would test my faith and resolve in ways I could never have fathomed. As I ventured further into the depths of darkness concealed within St. Mark's Church, I understood that the nightmare had only begun, and the true horrors lurking within the shadows were yet to be unveiled.
Thank you for watching. If you want to support our channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe and like button.